between aggression and over-aggression.
Last year at this track, Zanardi put a move on Brian Herter that was aggressive but highly praised. Last week in Vancouver, Zanardi made another move on Herter, which Kart decided was over-aggressive and fined him $25,000.
I'm obviously pissed off because I was leading the race. He turfed me out of the lead, and we weren't even racing. I wasn't racing him.
I think as long as you know what you're doing, that's what you're supposed to do. That's what you pay to do.
This was the scene at Laguna Seca just before 6:30 this morning. The fog had rolled in from the coast. It's a common occurrence here at Laguna Seca. The fans who've been camping overnight taking the opportunity to warm up a little bit. But right now the scene is completely different. The sun has come out and we're all set for the Toyota Grand Prix of Monterey, featuring the Texaco Javelin 300. And a fantastic crowd has turned out. They have just wonderful conditions to watch the race this afternoon. A race which should see Alex Zanardi crowned as the 1997 champion. This is Ben Edwards and Jeremy Shaw for you with live coverage from Eurosport. And Jeremy, we've got a great day's action hopefully ahead of us today.
Indeed so, I think, Ben. It's fascinating prospects really, with Brian Herter tipping the scales his way this time. 1 year ago it was Alex Zanardi with a last lap effort in qualifying to wrest away the pole from Brian Herter. This year a different story. Brian Herter turns the tables. Brian Herter will start on his third pole position, but he's still seeking that first victory.
Well, Zanardi got the fine last week. It wasn't something he was too happy about, nor was his team owner.
Walking with Chip Ganassi as they await the start of this race. Are those sanctions just in your mind, and will it impact the performance of your driver today, Chip, as he tries to wrap up a championship?
I don't think so, Gary. We're focused on the championship. You know, Alex has shown he can win at the road races, he can win on the streets, he can win on the ovals. Today we're going to see if he's worthy of being a champion, and that's the kind of drive you're going to see from him.
A little more pressure, $1 million on the line. Jan Beekes?
Well, of course, there's a lot on line for the first corner as well. On the left, we've got Alex Zanardi on the right.
So Alex Zanardi then on that front row of the grid with Brian Herter. We'll just have to see what sort of performance he puts in here today. Made a few mistakes obviously in Vancouver last week. He was struggling though with a brake system that wasn't working quite as well as he had hoped it would. But the question is whether he's going to be as aggressive here in Laguna Seca. The most that he needs is a 6th place, and that's only if Gilles de Ferran is actually leading this race and heading for victory. If he beats Gilles de Ferran, then Zanardi is champion anyway. There have been a few incidents this year. Remember this one in Australia earlier this year when Paul Tracy and Alex Zanardi tangled. Another incident in Toronto this year when Zanardi clouted Greg Moore. It wasn't something that the Canadian was too happy about. But hopefully today we won't see any mistakes from Zanardi. He's just looking to take the championship.
Absolutely right. Gilles de Ferran is quite a way back down the grid. He's much further back than he wanted to be, in 9th position, a whole second slower than Brian Herter, also on Goodyear tyres.
So let's look at the grid then. Herter on that pole position, a dramatic pole, half a second faster than anybody else. Zanardi alongside, chasing the title. Pruitt's last podium finish came in Brazil, but he was 3rd here last year. Blundell's looking good. Gugelmin, the winner of last week, alongside the man who was 2nd last week, Jimmy Vasser. Then Greg Moore, who's also looking for a first podium for a little while. Michel Jourdain was fantastic yesterday in qualifying. Gilles de Ferran disappointing, as we'd heard. Andre Ribeiro gradually getting the car better. Christian Fittipaldi and Paul Tracy line up on row 6 together. Dario Franchitti disappointed with 13th. Hopefully they've got the car better this afternoon. Then it's Raul Boesel with Bobby Rahal, the two experienced veterans alongside one another on row 8. Then Parker Johnson, who lived around here as a kid, with Guelta Sales. Max Papis and Alan Sir Jr. share the 10th row ahead of Richie Hearn and Juan Fangio in the Toyota-powered car. PJ Jones is next up alongside Adrian Fernandez, struggling with the Lola. Hiro Matsushita has Roberto Moreno alongside, the man standing in once again for Patrick Carpentier. And at the back of the grid, we have Charlie Neerberg and Dennis Vitolo. Looking at the onboard camera at the moment, with the only other man who could possibly take the title this year, and that's Gilles de Ferran.
And Gilles de Ferran has to either win this race or the very least finish 2nd and get the most points for most laps led in order to take the championship down to the last race at Fontana in 3 weeks' time. It's a tall order for the Brazilian.
Brian Herter brings the cars out along the start-finish straight. Look at what Zanardi needs to do. Needs to finish 7th or better to clinch the cup, but that is if Gilles de Ferran is in front, if he's winning this race. De Ferran needs to finish 2nd or better, as you can see, to keep the championship alive, and that's with Zanardi not doing well here today, to keep it alive to the remaining race, which is on the super speedway in Fontana. And although Zanardi has already won a race on a super speedway this year, that was in Michigan, of course the super speedway by its nature, it's a long race, it's a very tough race on the cars, very unpredictable. He will not want this to go down to the final round.
No, he really will want to tie this up this afternoon, I think, because he had the opportunity to do so last weekend, wasn't able to accomplish that. He'll want to make the championship his first priority this afternoon, Ben.
They're coming round at the end of this lap to actually start the race. Jim Swindoll on the start line, and we may well hear from him. He's got a microphone, so we'll go quiet just as they come out of the last corner and see whether we can hear him, just making sure that everybody's in position. Now remember, they have to be alongside one another in a nice tidy row on either side of the pit straight as they come up alongside him.
It's kind of difficult to make the positions here because the final corner is a very tight left-handed, almost a hairpin turn, and you cannot go through that corner side by side really, so they have to line up as they come out of the hairpin, and there's then about 300 or 400 yards between that final hairpin and the start-finish line where Jim Swindoll has his green flags ready to wave.
You can see the lights off on that pace car. That means they will be bringing it round to the green flag. It's an 83-lap race, quite tight on fuel, so they don't have much margin for error. It'll be around lap 27, lap 28 that they'll be coming in for their first stop, and they can't really play with that very much, except on the yellow flags. But we won't see them like we did in Vancouver last week, coming in after just, say, 10 or 12 laps and being able to do their first stop. It is much tighter than that. So here we go. They're getting ready for green. Let's see if we can hear from Jim Swindoll on the start gantry as he brings them round. Well, it doesn't sound as though we're getting much sound from Jim Swindoll, so let's call it as it happens. Herter gets the best start. Zanardi slots into 2nd place. And next up, of course, is Scott Pruitt. He was 3rd in qualifying. Mark Blundell is trying to get 4th, but he's being squeezed by Jimmy Vasser. Vasser going around the outside of turn number 2 there. And I think Vasser's got past Blundell. He has, so he's into 4th. But it's the pole man, Brian Herter, who makes the best start.
And Gugelmin was the one that lost out there. He was squeezed right over to the inside curve there, and I think lost a couple of positions as well.
So Herter has Alex Zanardi chasing him on the opening lap of this race. The battle between the two of them as intense as ever. And we saw it in Vancouver, all going wrong last weekend. Now then, Zanardi is pushing Herter very, very hard on this opening lap, just trying to keep the pressure on the American. You could see how wide Herter was right up onto the curbing there. They've got some new pieces of curb around this track for this year, and he's certainly pushing it right to the limits of the track.
And coming out of turn 6 there, Zanardi, as you say, using all of the track there. And of course, Zanardi had a little spin there in qualifying. He was trying to get that pole back. There's Scott Pruitt getting very sideways there out of turn 9 coming down the hill.
Yeah, he's pushing very hard indeed to keep up with the top two. Behind Scott Pruitt, you can see the other target car. That's the reigning champion, Jimmy Vasser. Then it's Mark Blundell. He's being chased by Maurizio Gugelmin. So we've got the 2 Ganassi cars up there. We've got the 2 Pac West cars up there. But at the moment, it's the Team Rahal car of Brian Herter who leads this race. And ignore the caption there. You're actually looking at Mark Blundell in the Motorola car, not Maurizio Gugelmin. Mark in 5th position, Gugelmin in 6th. De Ferran made quite a good start because he's made up 2 places from his grid position. He's in 7th place, got past Michel Jourdain. You can just see him there. There is Gilles de Ferran. Remember, he needs to win or at least be 2nd here today. Just looking down at the back of the field there, and Matsushita looks as though he's in trouble. Piero Matsushita, and it looks as though he's got some sort of problem with his car. We've also got news that we've got a black flag for one of the cars on circuit at the moment. It could be for Charlie Neerberg. We'll have to wait and see.
Didn't see who that was, I must admit, that time around, but no change. There is Brian Herter accelerating down the hill, that very quick left-hander there, now the right-hander at turn 10. And a good little margin Herter has pulled out over these first couple of laps over Alex Zanardi. This is, of course, the battle between the tyre companies. Goodyear out in front at the moment. It's been a long time. It's been 9 races since Goodyear has last had a victory. So Brian Herter is leading the way for Goodyear at the moment.
So up front, Herter with an advantage of just 1.3 seconds as he went across the line that time over Alex Zanardi. Scott Pruitt then just about another second further back, and just beginning to space themselves out a little bit as they come through that infield section. This was a revised part of circuit a few years ago. Still a very challenging track though, as we've already seen throughout qualifying. This is where they begin to climb quite steeply uphill as they go out through turn number 5 up towards turn number 6 now, and again the track climbs even more steeply now. They really are heading up towards the sky as they come up towards the corkscrew. Then it levels off, and then they're hard on the brakes down to second gear and dropping down to about 50 miles an hour as they drop through the corkscrew. Very steep through there, and then into the quick left-hander. Brian Herter is the leader from Alex Zanardi and Scott Pruitt with just 2.5 laps completed. Back live at Laguna Seca, and 24 laps have been completed. Scott Pruitt is our race leader in what has been a fairly dramatic first third to this race. Jimmy Vasser is in second place. Alex Zanardi is in third, and in comes our former race leader, Brian Herter. Herter, who lost the lead after battling too hard with Zanardi, paid the penalty, and then ended up dropping right down the field after he took a trip onto the dirt. So he needs to come in. The Goodyear tyres are in a right old state, and he has had to come into the pits, and that really means that Brian Herter is dropping down the order. Let's take a look back at what happened. This was the situation a little bit earlier on when Alex Zanardi tried to go round the outside of Brian Herter into turn 2. But as they came out of the corner, Herter then just squeezed Zanardi out. Zanardi get onto the gravel, and Scott Pruitt was able to get past both of them in this incident and take the lead of the race. Jimmy Vasser was also able to go through, and that made life much easier. So that's the reason that you're now watching Scott Pruitt leading this race from Jimmy Vasser. The lead is about 3.9 seconds, but in comes Scott Pruitt for the first of his scheduled pit stops.
Yeah, 26 laps in the book, that's about right. He'll be able to make the conclusion of this race with one more pit stop, but change of 4 fresh Firestone tyres there, a full tank of fuel, 35 gallons of methanol, and there also is Alex Zanardi in the pits. I think Michel Jourdain Jr. was also in behind him. We're well in, there is Andre Ribera coming in, and there goes Scott Pruitt, a pretty good stop. Can he get out ahead of Zanardi?
So this is the battle in the pit lane. Yes, you can see that Pruitt is ahead of Zanardi as they come back out again. Jimmy Vasser now leads this race, remember, and he was between these two before the pit stops. But Ganassi, Zanardi getting it very crossed up there. Cold tyres, remember, as we always have to recall that they do not have tyre warmers in this form of racing, and that means that when you go out on cold tyres, it's all too easy to get into trouble. Our race leader always been squeezed by Dennis Vitolo, but Jimmy Vasser survives the moment, and presumably he'll be coming in at the end of this lap. They are tight, as we mentioned earlier on. They have to stop around this time. There's not much leeway, and remarkably, we haven't had a full course yellow. And bearing in mind all the accidents we've seen so far this weekend, yep, in comes Jimmy Vasser. Now the question is whether he will come out ahead of Scott Pruitt and Alex Zanardi, who've already made their stop. Gilles de Ferran is now being shown as our race leader, and we'll have to see whether he goes into the pits. Jimmy Vasser gets fuel on board, the methanol goes aboard, the new tyres are on. A little bit of a change on the front wing by the looks of things. Gets going again, pretty smooth stop, 13.3 seconds, just misses the tyres that have been laid out for Bobby Rahal, as Gilles de Ferran comes in right up at the top end of the pit lane. They are the last pit there.
Yeah, he's about the last of the leaders now to make a pit stop, but unfortunately Michel Jourdain Jr. had an awfully long stop there, the Peyton Coyne car. He came out in 10th place. He'll move up when Gilles de Ferran stops, perhaps, but an awfully long stop, and it's a great shame for Michel.
We'll try and keep an eye out of the window now, because as the pit stops are settled down, let's see what's happened. Vasser's come out ahead of Pruitt. Jimmy Vasser has come out just ahead of Scott Pruitt. Great stop for Jimmy Vasser, and it's now put him into the lead of this race, but he's on cold tyres, and Scott Pruitt is trying to take advantage of the fact that his tyres are up to temperature, but he's not quite going to go for it down the inside into turn number 5. What about on the exit? Can he climb up the hill more quickly? Up towards turn 6. Oh, and he has a think about it. Locks a left front brake, but it's not good enough. And I think Jimmy Vasser has done enough. A brave piece of driving on cold tyres from last year's champion. And he now gets in front of Pruitt. Now he should be settled down when they come round this time, that these two are in front. We've seen a couple of other guys leading on the pit stops, PJ Jones and then Parker Johnston being shown as race leader, but we've just seen Johnston into the pits. So as these two come round this time to complete 28 laps, Jimmy Vasser is the new race leader from Scott Pruitt in second place. Across the line they go then, and the gap just 0.4 of a second. Zanardi is in third place, Guterman is in fourth, Mark Blundell is in fifth position after that first round of stops. So apart from the top two, things not changing that much.
No, that's right, but what tremendous work there by Grant Weaver and the pit crew there for car number one, the reigning PPG Kart World Series champion. They made up more than 3 seconds was the deficit to Pruitt before that pit stop, and they get Vasser out ahead of Pruitt. That's a phenomenal effort by that crew.
Must have shown that Jimmy Vasser did a very quick lap when he was up in front as well, when Pruitt and Zanardi came in. Obviously Jimmy put everything out, hung everything out to do a quick lap time, and that probably gained him a little bit, and also a great stop from the crew and a good outlap, and he managed to just stay in front of Scott Pruitt. So great work there from Jimmy Vasser, still chasing his first win of the 1997 season, and he'd love to take it here. This is home territory really for the Californian on the Laguna Seca Raceway, and at the moment he's just got the edge over Scott Pruitt in second position. Alex Zanardi you can see in third, then you can see Maurizio Guterman in fourth, and Mark Blundell in fifth place.
Yeah, and they all seem to be closing up a little bit too, so we've got quite a race on our hands coming up here. Zanardi seems to have suffered no ill effects from that earlier bump with Brian Herter, and he's running pretty strongly there in third place.
Vasser then controls this race at the moment with just over 1/3 distance completed. There are 54 laps to go. Let me just tell you what's been happening with some of the other guys behind the lead group that you're watching of Vasser, Pruitt, Zanardi, Guterman, Blundell, and then Ribeiro has come up into sixth place. So a good stop from the Tasman guys. Andre Ribeiro popping up into sixth ahead of Gilles de Ferran in seventh. Greg Moore in eighth. Brian Herter, our early race leader, who lost all his advantage when he was battling with Zanardi and then with Jimmy Vasser. He's now in ninth place. Max Papis is going well. He's in 10th position. That's an excellent effort. Michel Jourdain lost out on that first round of stops. He's down in 11th. Bobby Rahal is in 12th. Then it's Christian Fittipaldi in 13th, Walter Sales 14th, and Dario Franchitti, disappointingly, he's running down in 15th position at the moment. Richie Hearn in 16th, and Al Unser Jr. in 17th position.
Yeah, remarkably, Max Papis, I don't think, has made a pit stop yet. He's stretched that fuel load incredibly long way. That's 30 laps in the books now, and still no sign of a pit stop from Max Papis. So he's driving quickly too. He's maintaining position there ahead of Michel Jourdain Jr., who really is much faster than that. I think we'll see Michel moving up a couple within the next few laps.
So just watching the gaps between the various drivers on your screen at the moment, the gaps in seconds between the leader and the ones following him, 1.2 seconds back to Pruitt, 2 seconds back to Zanardi. But down in the pits, unfortunately, once again, is Paul Tracy. Remember, we saw him just pull off to the side of the road a little while ago, and the Canadian had just been in for a pit stop, changed tyres and refueled. But Paul Tracy out of this race once again. Let's hear from him.
Coming from his car, he's watching the action on the Jumbotron. What put you out? We saw you pull off the side of the track.
Oh, we don't know yet. It was, we were running good, and I was saving my tires, just kind of pacing myself along, and we caught the lead group up, and the car was fine, and then all of a sudden I picked up some kind of an engine misfire. It was real intermittent, and Greg and Andre got by me, and then I dove in the pits because it quit running coming down the hill, and then it picked up and did my pit stop, and we got up to the top of the hill leaving the pit, and the engine shut off again. So we really don't know what went wrong. It's just disappointing for the crew because we had a good car and we were starting to come around.
Well, the next one is an oval. I know you're happy about Fontana. It's an oval where the Penske's run well. Thanks.
Thank you.
So Tracy will just for one more race this year to try and pick up some pieces from this disappointing season, or latter part of the season. Looking at the two Pac West cars at the moment, Guterman, winner in Vancouver last week, and Mark Blundell, winner of 2 races so far this year. Those two running in 4th and 5th places. But once again, the top 5 cars pretty close. There's only 4 seconds separating from Vasser through to Mark Blundell. two leaders. We're watching from the helicopter overhead, when in fact we're watching second and third at the moment. Jimmy Vasser just a little stretched the lead at the moment. Last time round it was 1.5 seconds. Let's just see, as he crosses the line this time, he's definitely opened it up a bit more. It's now 2.2 seconds. So Pruitt there in second place, and then Zanardi just driving a controlled race, I would say, in third. There is the man who moved up probably most of all in that first round of pit stops, Andre Ribeiro, driving in the Tasman Motorsports Reynard Honda, and he's just going past one of the slower cars, Dennis Vitolo. But Ribeiro driving well at the moment, and he's opened up something like 3 seconds over Gilles de Ferran, but he's some 10 seconds behind Mark Blundell, so there's a long way for him to go to catch that lead group.
That's true. It's funny enough, I'm not sure whether Ribeiro made a mistake on the last lap, because he'd actually closed the gap by almost a second on the previous lap, and then lost at least half of that gain on the next lap, and now he's made it up again. So I think he might have made a bit of a mistake there, but I think Ribeiro is actually going pretty quickly. He had an off yesterday morning in the practice session, and he actually broke the steering rack on that car. They had to get that out of the whole front tub assembly there, put a new steering rack in, so he missed all yesterday morning, and he was still improving the car in qualifying yesterday afternoon. Seems to have a good handle on it now, and he's moving up the order.
So Andre Ribeiro there in 6th position, chasing after our lead group, which is still being led by Jimmy Vasser after 33 laps have been completed. And Vasser with a 2.0 second lead now over Scott Pruitt. It's almost exactly another second back to Alex Zanardi, then Guterman and Blundell. Now, remember, we talked about this race being fairly tight on fuel, so this mid part of the race we may well see positions stay fairly constant as people worry about their fuel consumption, not pushing too hard, running the engines on a fairly lean fuel setting. They may not be pushing that hard in this middle stint. We may then see them begin to fire things up later on in the race.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right there, Ben. And what's interesting is that Jimmy Vasser and Gilles de Ferran were able to go 1 lap farther than everybody else. So they've got a little bit of more of a margin on their fuel than have most of the rest of the field. That's going to be interesting to see how that plays out over the next 15-20 laps. If you can still do 1 extra lap each stint, that gives you another couple of gallons to play with at the end of this race, and that's very good news indeed.
Yes, that could well be on the mind of Gilles de Ferran, running in 7th place, not doing any particularly quick times at the moment, but he may be saving that fuel up for later on. On board with another Brazilian, this is Christian Fittipaldi in the sole remaining Swift chassis in the race now. We've already seen Michael go out of the race with engine problems. He had a misfire problem that put him out. And Christian's involved in quite a big group of cars here. We've got Bobby Rahal, and there you can see Herta actually running at the head of this group. He's in 9th position. And Brian Herta, our early race leader, but those Goodyear tyres, they were so good in qualifying yesterday, but once again we've been shown that the Firestone tyre is the more consistent tyre when you get into the race, and Brian was just struggling to stay at the head of that group up front.
Yeah, and he is now under pressure there from Michel Jourdain Jr. That is a battle for 9th position now, and frustration really for both of these guys, because Michel lost a lot of time in his pit stop, and Herta lost a lot of time, well, basically off the road. So, you know, it's a shame. Herta thought yesterday he was in pretty good shape. He was able to set a 1:08.9 on a set of tyres that had more than a full fuel stint on them. It had about 32 or 3 laps on those tyres. He thought he was in fairly good shape, but that's not the way it's turned out, Ben.
It's never quite the same running in practice where they're only doing a few laps at a time. So getting into the race when they're doing a stint of 27 laps or so, and the tyres getting much more of a hammering. And Firestone definitely have the advantage at the moment. They've had something like 9 victories in a row since the mid-season, when the ovals did seem to suit the Goodyear tyres. And remember, Paul Tracy on Goodyear tyres really had a fantastic patch when he won 3 races in a row on the oval tracks. But these tracks are just suiting the Firestone that much better. So there is Herta. His advantage pretty small over Michel Jourdain. Max Papp is still running in 11th position. 12th for Bobby Rahal. And then 13th for Fittipaldi, 14th for Gualter Sales, 15th place still running is Dario Franchitti, but he just doesn't seem to have quite got the handle on the car this weekend. They haven't been happy with the handling of it, and they couldn't quite figure out why, so it seems as though Franchitti's destined to be a little further down the order in this race than we've seen on recent occasions. back at Laguna Seca, and you're not riding with a man in second place, Scott Pruitt, but with his teammate, Raul Boesel, car number 40, and he's in 17th position at the moment, so it's not being a particularly good race for Raul Boesel. Jimmy Vasser still leads this race after 38 laps, getting close to half distance now. Scott Pruitt is second, Zanardi third, Guterman is lying in fourth place, ahead of Mark Blundell in fifth, Ribeiro sixth, Gilles de Ferran seventh, Greg Moore eighth, Brian Herter in ninth, and Michel Jourdain Jr. in 10th place. It's been a race of incidents in the early part of the race, but now it's just beginning to settle down a little bit in the middle stint, which is pretty much as we might have expected. People concentrating on just not using too much fuel. And you're riding at the moment with Raul Boesel as he comes across start-finish line to complete his 38th lap and down into turn number 2.
Here he is hard on the brakes there, downshifting down to second gear there for the hairpin left. On the power coming out there up to third gear, and now right-handed into turn 3. And Raul certainly, he's down in 17th place there as you saw, and that's a lot farther down than he expected to be this afternoon. He lost some time during that round of pit stops. He was running 14th before that, so he lost 3 positions in those stops. And the battle, the interest now is at the front of the field. There's another 2 positions there, the 2 Pac West cars, Guterman and Blundell. They also changed during that first round of pit stops, and they're running pretty strongly there in 4th and 5th.
Yeah, just focusing on their race at the moment, concentrating on the fuel mileage, just trying to be in a position to attack in the latter stages of this event. In the background, you just quickly saw the Penske. Don't worry, that's the one of Paul Tracy. Haven't missed anything. Paul Tracy went out a little while ago as he explained the engine just cut on him. So disappointment for him today. Al Unser Jr. is still running, by the way. He's down in 16th position so far, not making up the sort of ground we saw in Vancouver last week. I have to say that was a classic Unser performance we saw last week, Jeremy, because he had what was his worst ever qualifying performance on a street or road course, and yet at the end of the day he had a good finish.
Yeah, it says a lot about this series. It doesn't really matter where you qualify. If you have a good race, you have a good pit stops and good strategy, you can make up a lot of ground. And we've seen that from Jimmy Vasser this afternoon. He qualified only 6th, and here he is in the lead. Everything's gone his way. A great first pit stop, and that's what made the difference. He's now a couple of seconds advantage over Scott Pruitt.
Yes, and as you can see, Pruitt has still got Alex Zanardi close behind him. Remember, Alex Zanardi chasing the championship here today in California. And in fact, the gap, not much. Jimmy's just been held up by one of the All-American racers. And look at that. See Jimmy Vasser as your lead car still. Look how close Scott Pruitt and Alex Zanardi have now got to Jimmy Vasser. I don't think that's going to cause him too many problems. He seems to have the pace, as Alex Zanardi also manages to go past. I think that's PJ Jones. They're just going overtaking. Zanardi was just a touch wide on the exit there, but he still keeps it under control and remains in 3rd position. Plenty of points for 3rd place, more than enough for what Zanardi needs today. He only needs a few to make sure of the title ahead of Gilles de Ferran. And he's really driving a sort of race that we need to see from him today.
Yeah, that's exactly right. He's no chances. He really wasn't a chance. I mean, no question Herter pushed him off the road. It was a little bit unnecessary. A lot of frustration from Brian Herter. You can understand it to a point, but I'm still surprised. Herter is a very sensible young man, and he's a fierce competitor, and he feels that he had a score to settle with Alex Zanardi. No question, he's now settled that score, and I think we won't see anything like that from Brian Herter again.
Yes, hopefully it'll all be forgotten now, and Zanardi and Herter can get on with just racing cleanly against one another with no hard feelings. Let's hope so. Zanardi has survived the incident. Of course, it could have been worse, and that could have caused all sorts of dramas. If Zanardi's car had been badly damaged in that incident, then I don't think we'd ever quite have heard the end of it. And I don't think Brian Herter would have been in a particularly good position to defend himself in that particular situation. He definitely gave Zanardi quite a hefty shove off the track. But Vasser still in control of this race. Pruitt in 2nd, Zanardi in 3rd. On-board camera now from Bobby Rahal for a moment, but we switched to a view of Richie Hearn, who's in the pits. He's been sitting there for a few moments, hasn't he, Jeremy?
Yeah, he came in, he's been in there for a good 30 seconds or so. It's certainly a very long stop by Della Penna crew, and you can see there that he's climbing, here comes the steering wheel Richie Herne getting out another short day for him. He'd actually been running very well. He was running 15th right behind Dario Franchitti and ahead of Alex Jr. And it's a shame for Richie Herne. It's a pretty good run for him. The Lola has been not the car to have this year, but now he can look forward to the final race at Fontana in 3 weeks' time. He'll have one of the Swifts at his disposal, and we saw how well the Swifts work on the opening race of the season at Homestead, and Richie will be hoping that it'll work as well for him when they go to Fontana on September 28th.
That's right, yes. We're watching Andre Ribeiro at the moment, but just going back to Richie Herne, he's a punchy young driver. He's really got a lot of fire about him. I'm looking forward to seeing him in what should be a much faster car for the final race, just to see what he can do. It's going to be a tall order. He's not going to get much time in it beforehand, but it should be fun to see whether Richie Herne and Della Penna Motorsports can salvage something from a disappointing season. Certainly some team that has salvaged a fair bit is this team, Andre Ribeiro and Tasman, who also started with the Lola chassis, remember. It was an awful start to the season. Ribeiro switched to the Reynard, and he certainly picked up some good results since then. We can keep a little eye on the telemetry there of Andre Ribeiro's car, showing the acceleration out of the corner. So top speed about 175 miles an hour, perhaps a bit more, yeah, just nudging 180 as he goes down towards turn number 2 there. Gets down the inside, does he, of PJ Jones, just about. Jones just staying with him around the outside for a moment.
Yeah, Jones has not been very helpful this afternoon. He held up Vassar royally. It cost him at least a couple of seconds. All the gap that he'd made up over Scott Pruitt was swept away inside a couple of corners. Quite surprised at PJ Jones, although Alex Zanardi might take issue with me on that one. He has had a couple of run-ins with the guy, but now he's certainly kept out of the way there of Andre Ribeiro, and they can get on with the business. Ribeiro incidentally has certainly done a good job in closing down some of that deficit to Mark Blundell, the 2-pack West cars indeed that are running ahead of him.
Yes, he's got it down to 7 seconds now, the gap between himself and Blundell. It was 10 seconds, so he's doing well. Let's hear from Richie Herne in the pits.
According to the crew, it's good news and bad news for you. Obviously the bad news, you're out of the race, but I guess good news, you finally put the Lola out of its misery. You'll have a Swift in the next race.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of a sad ending to a tough year for this car, and we actually weren't running too bad. I was really able to run with those guys. I picked the harder compound tires to qualify with, so I think I was much more consistent during the run, but we're looking forward to the next race with the Swift at Fontana, and hopefully we can have a really good finish there.
Were even the harder tires going off for you?
I never had a problem. I was running just as good at the end of the run as I was at the beginning. All weekend long I've been like that, so it worked out for me, and it's just unfortunate I didn't get to finish the race.
All right, we look forward to seeing you in the Swift. Thanks.
Thank you.
That's Richie Herne, a name where may figure more strongly next year. If they get their package together correctly, they will be running the Swift next year, and if they produce a good car for next season, which looks promising, have to say. The Swift has been good this year. Just towards the end of the season they seem to have tailed off a little bit, but with a full winter program of testing under their belts, and they're looking to have the 1998 car ready very early, and to get plenty of testing in, then the Swift chassis could really be a force to be reckoned with next year. There's the other one, by the way, of Christian Fittipaldi, and he's still running down in 12th position behind Bobby Rahal. These two have been pretty much together for a major part of the race, but again, positions not really changing in this part of the field.
No, that's right. Again, as we said earlier on, both these two on Goodyear tyres, and if we look down the order, we've got Jimmy Vassar, Scott Pruitt, Alex Zanardi, the 2-pack West cars, Andre Ribeiro, the top 6 all on Firstones, then Gilles de Ferro, and he's the quickest once again of the Goodyear class after Herder's falling back there, and then 8th place is Greg Moore, 9th is Herder, and 10th Jourdain, so 8 Firestone cars in the top 10.
Back on board with Bobby Rahal. Let's just watch this view into turn 2. Hairpin left coming up here. Oh, and indeed coming up is Fittipaldi. He's just come down the inside. Well, that was a good time to put the onboard camera on as Christian made the move, but he went in too quick and he wasn't able to hold it, so Bobby's retaken that 11th place, just as it seemed to have all settled down between these two. Bobby went in wide. Christian took the opportunity, but in fact he couldn't hold the pace of the car down enough. Ran wide himself, and Bobby nipped back through. So it's proving to be quite a nice little dice between these two.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Good effort there by Christian, not able to pull it off that time. So a reprieve there for Bobby Rahal.
Well, we're going to have another little look at that, hopefully. Bobby Rahal, let's just watch this onboard. This is down the hill, through the corkscrew. I wish that showed how steep. We went and stood round there earlier on Friday during practice, and I can tell you that is seriously steep on that section. It's really quite hard to walk up it, and Bobby Rahal makes it look quite flat from that onboard camera, but it is something they experience in the car. Not the most difficult corner on the track perhaps, but it's certainly the most notable. Now then, this was the pass that Christian attempted on Bobby. Down the inside, made a nice pass, but the car then ran wide in the middle part of the corner. Christian then kept enough of an eye on his mirror to know that Bobby was back through on the inside. Good driving from both of them.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to try it, and both of them had their wits about them. No silly stuff on the exit.
So Bobby, who's a four-time winner on this racetrack, and he certainly had a lot of success here in the mid-80s, particularly from 1984 through to 1987. It was also a very successful time for Bobby Rahal in terms of the overall championship. Bobby Rahal, twice, in fact 3 times winner of the PPG Kart Cup, and the first 2 victories came when that successful period when he was winning here at Laguna Seca. 1986 and 1987 he scored back-to-back victories in the championship. It took a few more years, it was 1992 before he took his 3rd win. Jimmy Vasser leads after 49 laps have been completed here at Laguna Seca. We've got a car into the pits, so it looks like PJ Jones has come in, and we are getting into the vicinity of most of the second round of pit stops now. Within a few laps, we'll expect to see all of the cars coming in once again, but Vasser leads at the moment by just over a second from Scott Pruitt. 3rd place still is the man chasing the championship here today, Alex Zanardi, and 3rd would be more than enough for him to wrap up the title and the $1 million that goes with it. Maurizio Gugelmin in 4th position, Mark Blundell in 5th, Andre Ribeiro 6th, then Gilles de Ferran, Greg Moore, Brian Herter, and Michel Jourdain still in the top 10. He's doing a fine job out there this afternoon, just 21 years old, the Mexican, in his first full season of racing. They did a great job in qualifying, and he's doing a great job in the race too.
I'll tell you who else is doing a great job, and that's Roberto Moreno. He's only running in 17th position, but you know, he had no time in this car. He hopped in it for the first time yesterday afternoon in qualifying, and only got 7 laps in qualifying. He got another 8 or 9 laps this morning, and his last lap was a 1:11.676. The race leader, Jimmy Vasser, did a 1:11.669. So he's running identical pace to the race leader. That's a very impressive effort from Roberto Moreno. He's caught right up with Raul Boesel and Alonso Jr., who are just ahead of him on the racetrack.
It's good news, Roberto, who really had a surprise yesterday when they suddenly decided that Patrick Carpentier couldn't drive the car. He had been trying to, with a carbon fibre cast over his shoulder. He broke his collarbone in a recent mountain biking accident, didn't race last time, and Roberto, 45 minutes before the second qualifying, they said, "Oi, Roberto, you're driving." So it was all a bit of a panic, but they got him in the car, and he's doing a fine job in the race. Jimmy Vasser leads though, Pruitt 2nd, Zanardi 3rd, and then the 2 Pac West cars of Guterman and Blundell. So it's interesting to watch these 2 Pac West cars. They've really been running line astern for quite a number of laps now, absolutely identical on pace. They had a nice week, both guys going off to Bruce McCaw's place in near Seattle, up in the countryside. They did a bit of karting, they did all sorts of fun and games up there. Not only do they run a PPG kart team, they also run a team in Indy Lights and also a team in the touring cars. So they had a whole bunch of drivers up there, all the team members. I think they had a rather fun time in Seattle.
Yeah, apparently it's a very, very impressive place. There's Gualter Salas now putting pressure on Bobby Rahal. So Christian Fittipaldi has finally made a way through past Bobby Rahal, and Gualter Salas now trying to follow suit. But just back on the Pac West thing a little bit, no luck for the Indy Lights team this morning. There's Dario Franchitti off the road. That's
disappointment for Dario. We can't see what's happened. I wonder what's happened there. He was running down in 14th position outside the points. Remember, they scored down to 12th in the PPG Kart Series, but Dario is out of it again, and that's the 3rd race in succession that he's gone off. Well, that really is a great disappointment. Rookie of the year really almost gone from him unless there's something miraculous happens in the final race in Fontana.
Yeah, he was dicing with Alonso Jr., so I don't know whether there was something there between them, we didn't see what happened.
Well, maybe we'll get a chance to see as Jourdain right behind Herter there. Franchitti gets help from the kart safety guys, and I wonder what happened there. I mean, there has been an incident between Al and Dario before. That was in Portland earlier this year. I just hope that nothing went wrong between them on this occasion. Meanwhile, let me tell you, I can get a view of the pit. So let's have a look. This is what happened. Oh, well, he lost it basically under braking. Apparently he was reporting some braking troubles to his team over the radio just a few laps earlier, and it looks as though those braking troubles caught him out, and that's a great disappointment. He's actually a driver who's very easy on his brakes normally. Talking to his engineers, they say he's very light on the brakes, and I just wonder whether they didn't get the setup right. Of course, remember, they can put a different amount of ducting on the brakes, and we're getting quite a long way into the race. Perhaps the brakes just overheating and getting into trouble.
Yeah, look at this lot there. They're all stacked up behind one of the Renault Toyotas there. That is the battle for second place. Pruitt, Zanardi, and then the two Pat West cars. Juan Fangio keeping right out of the way. Nice job, Juan. Let this battle go on ahead. Meanwhile, Jimmy Vasser has pulled out a pretty substantial advantage.
Yeah, and also, let me tell you that all the pit crews... Oh, Dario's back on the track. That's one thing about this series. If your car's okay, they'll always try and get you back in the race. Now, whether he'll continue, we'll see. Let me tell you that Brian Herter has just come into the pit lane as you continue to watch this group that's battling for second place, climbing their way up the hill. But we are really now getting into the battle of pit stops, and this is where the race could be decided. Brian Herter into the pits. He's out of it, really. Remember, he lost so much time earlier, particularly when Jimmy Vasser went past him. Brian ran onto the dirt. That was really where he lost all of the ground when he was leading the race earlier on. But what we need to see now is the first of this lead group coming in. Yes, there they go. Scott Pruitt, Zanardi peels into the track, into the pits. Guterman also. Meanwhile, Jimmy Vasser and Mark Blundell, they stay out on track. This is really going to be tight stuff now, as Zanardi's crew and Pruitt's crew go to work there in the pit lane.
Yeah, certainly last time around, Vasser was, as we talked about earlier on, he was able to go one lap more. So the first stops was made on lap 27 for all these people. Now they're in on lap 54. But there goes Pruitt away.
Zanardi's got in front of him. Zanardi's ahead of Pruitt. So it worked for Ganassi. They've done a great job. And that should get Zanardi out in at least second. Oh, and Guterman's in front of Pruitt. Bad stop from the Patrick team, the Brabham Sports team, as Guterman has also got in front of Scott Pruitt.
Yeah, that's interesting. But you know what? Looking ahead here, we've got 29 laps to go. Both their first two stints have only done 27 laps. So that's going to be interesting. Are they going to have enough fuel to get to the end of this race?
Well, we shall have to see. Of course, Jimmy Vasser could be in good shape. As you said, he came in later than anyone else. And Mark Blundell is also pushing it one more lap on this stint, so he may be in good shape as well. And we'll wait to see if Vasser comes in on this next lap, or maybe he can go one more lap. There he is. He is in this time, so he only goes one extra lap again. And Jimmy Vasser, will he come back out in front, or will it be Zanardi? Of course, still a few other guys to make their stops yet. A little bit of a wing change again. No clock running on this one, unfortunately, as he gets going. Now then, we'll try and keep an eye on where everybody else is. There's Mark Blundell. He's not going to be out ahead of Vasser. In fact, it doesn't look like a particularly quick stop. Oh, bit of a battle coming out. There goes Blundell. Parker Johnson was in a battle coming out onto the pits there. And onto track comes Mark. Now then, where are the others? Where is Zanardi? Where is Scott Pruitt relative to Jimmy Vasser? Did he come out just ahead of them? I think he may have done, but he's not up to speed yet. So we wait to see what the situation is. We'll try and let you know as they come past our commentary position a little further around the track.
Yeah, here comes Jimmy Vasser. Passes now pretty slow there. Obviously fresh tyres for Jimmy Vasser. Second is actually Mark Blundell. So a great stop by those guys. Zanardi in third. There goes Guterman in fourth. And Pruitt back to fifth. So all change there.
Yes, indeed. Jimmy Vasser once again has made a great stop. You're watching Christian Fittipaldi come out, but Vasser has been able to maintain the lead, and he now is going to try and go for his first victory of the 1997 season, and Zanardi's going for the championship. Welcome back, and this has just happened. Zanardi's just been trying to get past Mark Blundell. He got it wrong. He locked up under brakes into turn 2, and Alex has just lost a couple of places. He's now down into 5th place. Another replay on board Alex as Blundell, he's trying to get past, squeezes down the inside, but runs out of time to get the braking done, runs onto the dirt. Lots of corrective lock being applied. He did well to actually keep it under control and restrained himself from spinning once he was on the dirt, but that has meant that he's dropped down to 5th place now. So it's Jimmy Vasser leading, and look how close Mark Blundell is. Mark Blundell is in 2nd place here. The gap just 4/10 of a second last time around, and Blundell is beginning to put in a spurt in the latter third of this race. 25 laps to go. Vasser leads, Blundell 2nd, Guterman 3rd, Scott Pruitt 4th, and Alex Zanardi now down in 5th.
Yeah, and all that good work has gone out of the window. He's still doing fine as far as the championship is concerned. He's still a couple of places ahead of Gilles de Ferran. That's all he needs to do, but pretty good attempt to get down the inside there. Mark Blundell squeezes him down, and he's on the dirty side of the track there, just braking too late. He can't make it through there.
Always a racer though, Alex Zanardi. You've got to give him that. He always goes for it, and he's a great driver to watch. Always spectacular, always determined, and even when he's chasing the championship, he's still prepared to have a go, which is great to see. Jimmy Vasser then, about to cross the line, leading this race to complete 59 laps, and you can see for yourselves as they cross the line, the speeds as they went across the line there. And Guterman just of those few with the fastest speed at that precise point. Oh, and Ribeiro with a little bit more, in fact. So Ribeiro with the fastest lap. That's an average lap speed you're looking at there rather than the actual speed trap figure across the line. So fastest lap from Andre Ribeiro of those leading cars. And look at this. As they go through the back markers, Blundell trying to get past. He gets through safely. That was going past Adrian Fernandez, and all three get through safely. Vasser from Mark Blundell from Maurizio Guterman, and the top 3 still very close together. Scott Pruitt is still in 4th place. He's a little bit further back behind these guys. Might just see him there behind Fernandez. And then watch out for Zanardi in the background, but he's a few seconds down on Pruitt. And there's Bruce McCall, the team owner of both Maurizio Guterman and Mark Blundell. And he's watching his 2 cars, looking for possible podium finish for both of his cars today.
Yeah, that'd be nice, wouldn't it? Certainly a couple of races ago at Elkhart Lake, they were robbed of 2 podium finishes there when Mark Blundell's engine blew just a couple of laps from the end of the race. A great performance by both of them there, but you know, they both came in 1 lap sooner than did Jimmy Vasser, and they've got to stretch that fuel a little bit farther, and that's going to be tough to do towards the latter stages of this race, and particularly if there are no full course cautions.
Pat West certainly have done a great job this year, haven't they? You look at the 2 victories for Mark Blundell, 1 win for Maurizio Guterman. They're the only team that have taken wins with both of their drivers in this year's championship. Of course, that may change today if Vasser stays where he is. But you have to say that in terms of an overall team performance, then Pat West have been the team of the year in terms of getting both of their drivers up to the top step.
Yeah, absolutely, Ben. Certainly in terms of stepping up to the plate as well. No victories prior to this year, and they've been consistently fast all season long. Maurizio Guterman has the best overall qualifying record, and you know, if not for a couple of bits of bad luck, he could be right there in the championship hunt. Those 2 are going to be very, very strong next season.
In fact, Guterman's still got a good chance of taking 2nd in the championship. De Ferran lying down in 7th at the moment. Guterman running in 3rd, and he's going to have to watch out. I know I spoke to Gilles' team earlier this morning, and they're certainly concerned about Guterman catching them up in the championship. Oh, Jimmy was very wide into turn 2 there, locked a brake. That gave Mark a chance to close up. Jimmy Vasser, though, is another man who's already taken the title. Just 12 months ago, in fact, at this Laguna Seca track, Jimmy Vasser came through to take the title, which had looked so comfortable for him earlier in the year. Jimmy Vasser, the reigning champion. Will his teammate be champion this year? There is Jimmy Vasser, still leading this race, but he really has got Mark Blundell very close behind. Interesting situation between the 2 of them. Remember, Mark Blundell won the race in Toronto under a lot of pressure from Vasser's teammate Alex Zanardi. Now Mark's trying to apply that same sort of pressure to Jimmy Vasser, and Jimmy will be so hungry for victory here. It's been a little disappointing season for him as the reigning champion to come through it with no wins so far. That hurts a bit, I think. And although he's been consistent, he's been outperformed by Alex Zanardi pretty consistently throughout the year. This would be a sweet victory if he can hold on.
That's true, Ben, but certainly, you know, Jimmy's been incredibly unlucky this season. He was taken out of second place in Australia earlier in the year. Several other times he's had problems during the pit stops. He had a wheel problem, a wheel nut got stuck at Mid-Ohio. He was running well there. He came back superbly through the field to finish 5th. And, you know, there always seems to be some kind of adversity during the race, but he's kept his head, and he knows he can win the races. He's had a good strong run, as you said, last weekend, and he did here, most of all, he would love to win. This is his hometown track. He was brought up only 15-20 miles away from this racetrack. He started his career here in Formula Ford, and boy, it was a crowning glory. Last year he won the championship here. He'd love to win the race this afternoon.
He's going to have his work cut out, though, because Mark Blundell is also scenting his 3rd win of the year. Down the hill they come through the corkscrew, and Blundell's victory so far this year, one at Portland, of course. That was the most incredible finish that we've seen, the best finish of the year, no question about that. When 3 cars crossed the line absolutely together, Blundell winning it from Gilles de Ferran and Raoul Boesel in the wet, dry conditions that we saw there. But he's also had a win on a street course, that controlled race in Toronto, where he led from start to finish, really under pressure from Zanardi the whole way through. And Mark Blundell's season really has been a good one. He came back from disappointment last year, that horrendous crash he suffered in Brazil, and he's been on such strong form this season. That combination with the team working well, the Mercedes-Benz power as well. They switched to Mercedes-Benz engines for this year, and that was definitely a good move. The Mercedes-Benz engine has really been the class of the field, and today, if Mark continues in the place he is now, and in fact they don't even need a position as good as second, they will wrap up the Manufacturers' Championship today, Mercedes-Benz, with a finish like this. So it really has been a good season for their engine.
Certainly has. And you know, last year, of course, they were winless. They didn't win a single race last year. They could have won several. The closest, of course, was Alan Jr.'s that massive failure right on the last lap at Elkhart Lake. But this year, boy, they turned the tables. They did a fabulous job at Ilmore Engineering over there in Brixworth, Northamptonshire. And the fruit of all that labour paying off, of course, a victory also for those guys earlier on today in Monza.
That's right, so it could be a good day for Mercedes-Benz and Ilmore. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Battle for 5th you're looking at the moment with Alex Zanardi versus Andre Ribeiro. Ribeiro's done well.
Yeah, he certainly has. He's flying now. He's lapping much more consistently than he was earlier in the race, and he's closing quite rapidly on Alex Zanardi.
Yeah, that gap just narrowing down bit by bit, and I wonder if Zanardi's got any sort of problem. It's not really that, it's just that Ribeiro's going quickly. His laps are consistently one of the fastest laps each lap round. We saw, remember, a little while ago that the indicator, Greg Moore slowing down. Greg Moore, there's a report of fire from the back of his car. Looks as though it's gone out now, but a report from around the track, and he's gone in the shortcut. Let's see what happened here. He was just about to lap Adrian Fernandez, and then a burst of flame from the back of the car, and that's very much the end of Greg Moore's run today.
What was that we were just saying about Ilmore and Mercedes-Benz? Well, you can't win them all, I suppose. More misfortune for Greg Moore. He's driven very, very well this season. He has made a couple of mistakes in the last 2 races, and there again another non-finish here. But shame for Greg Moore, but he's made his mark already this season, and there's a lot more to come from this 22-year-old Canadian.
Across the line they go this time, and we have 18 laps to go. That's all before the checker flag comes out, but I think that's going to be 18 quite long laps for Jimmy Vasser in this particular position. Can Mark Blundell find that little gap that he's looking for? There are overtaking opportunities here. We've already seen that in a couple of occasions. We also saw what Zanardi did here last year, and you can bet that Blundell will be very fired up to try and take a 3rd win. Neither of these guys are featuring in the top positions in the championship. In spite of Mark's successes this year, he still finds himself quite a long way down in the points. He's 10th place in the championship. Jimmy Vasser lying in 7th place so far. So that's a bit disappointing for both of them, and it's the race victory that will matter to them, not really scoring the points for being up on the podium. We've got Greg Moore down in the pits now.
We blew an order just going up into the corner. Same thing that happened to us in qualifying yesterday. It's unfortunate, you know, we were running real strong. Who knows what would happen? We were saving fuel. We don't have to make a 3rd stop, but our race race is over, we'll go to Fontana and try and win that one.
How were the conditions from a driver's standpoint today at Laguna Seca?
I think that the conditions are actually pretty good. You know, there's offline, they're starting to get a lot of rubber from all the marbles and stuff, but other than that, the track's pretty good.
Thank you.
Vassar still with a slight edge over Blundell. Gugelmin running in third, just playing it conservatively at the moment. He's got a second's advantage over Scott Pruitt in fourth. Zanardi fifth, with a narrowing margin to Andre Ribeiro. Then Gilles de Ferran in seventh. He's running a consistent race, de Ferran, but it's not enough. Remember, de Ferran needs to win this race, or at least finish second to have any hope in the title race, and that doesn't look like it's going to happen today. Christian Fittipaldi eighth, Gualdo Sales running well in ninth, and Michel Jourdain still there in 10th place. Brian Herter, our early race leader, is in 11th place ahead of Al Unser Jr., who's moved up. Again, good work from Penske in the pits has brought Al Unser Jr. into the points just about, 1 point for 12th. Raul Boesel is 13th, Bobby Rahal is 19th, 14th rather, what am I saying? And Roberto Moreno still running competitively in 15th place ahead of Fernandez and Papis.
Yeah, some good performance there. Gualdo Salas, Davies Racing, that's a great effort for them inside the top 10. They've been there several times this year and always seem to have some sort of misfortune put them out of the race, but a great run by this young Brazilian driver, a rookie driver, of course, Gualdo Salas, in Indy Lights last year, won 3 races in Indy Lights. He's also a Formula race winner in Formula 3 in England, and you know, it's a small team this year, a learning season, but a great effort by the young Brazilians.
Yeah, so good to see some of the youngsters going well into the points here at Laguna Seca, which in the past has always been the season finale to the championship. But this year, of course, we have a new race to look forward to in 3 weeks' time. They're going to be running in California again, funnily enough, at the California Speedway. And that's going to be a track very much like the Michigan Speedway, which we were on just a little earlier on this season. A flat-out blast around a big oval, and a race that actually provided good entertainment last time in Michigan, with Alex Zanardi taking the win. You're watching at the moment Jimmy Vasser just getting possibly held up a little bit by Parker Johnston.
Yeah, Parker Johnston. You know, Jimmy Vasser and Parker Johnston, they had 2 or 3 coming together this year, and hopefully Johnston will see that the leaders are coming past, because there he was trapped behind the back marker. He does so, he keeps out of the way. Good work, Parker Johnston and Dennis Vitolo, well out of the way, that the leaders go through unimpeded.
Yes, that could have been a tricky moment, but in fact they both survive, and there you see the positions. Vasser leads from Blundell, and we still have 15 laps to go. Can Mark make it 3 wins this year, or is Vasser going to hold on? Welcome back to Laguna Seca, where Andre Ribeiro has closed right up to Alex Zanardi now. Zanardi running 5th, and you're on board with Zanardi looking back from the camera mounted just under his rear wing. Andre Ribeiro, you can see behind you with the yellow, blue and red car, and Ribeiro driving a strong race here at the moment. Problems, however, let me tell you, for the young Mexican who we've been praising during this broadcast so far. Michel Jourdain is down in the pit lane at the moment. He was running in 10th place, but it looks as though he's got some sort of engine problem. There you can see Jourdain in the pits, the crew at work, but it doesn't look very good for him. So disappointment for Jourdain. Meanwhile, Zanardi running in 5th place. The race leader still Jimmy Vasser, but let me tell you, Mark Blundell is as close as ever, and he's still keeping the pressure on the American who leads this race. 13 laps to go.
Yeah, and the fuel is going to be the issue here. They've got a long way to go since their previous pit stops. They came on lap 55. That means they have to do 28 laps. Well, 28 laps. Well, it's 29 in actual fact. They came on lap 54, so that's a long way to go on a tank full of fuel. They weren't able to do that in the first 2 stints. Jimmy Vasser should be okay, but it's going to be interesting to see whether these other guys can stretch their fuel loads and make it to the finish.
Well, from the beginning of the race, I had a low pedal on the brake, so really I had to pump it out every time I used to go to a corner. So basically, I run out of brakes. The brakes were completely gone. The pedal was really long, and it was too dangerous out there. I mean, at one point, I went into the first pool, and I couldn't stop. And it was way too dangerous to stay out there, and the brakes were completely gone.
1 race yet to go in this season. Do you know what your plans are for 1998 at this point?
Well, I can tell you I'm looking forward to the last race at the moment, and towards next year. It's been a hard year, but, you know, we keep pushing and looking into the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Fernandez out with brake problems. That seems to go with some of the stories we've been hearing already, with Dario Franchitti also suffering brake problems earlier on. That saw him go off, and so that was disappointing for him. But Adrian Fernandez, Franchitti is still going, but he's quite a long way down the order. Meanwhile, the leaders still going well. Vassar from Blundell and Guterman with Scott Pruitt in 4th, then Zanardi here in 5th place. Look now how close Andre Ribeiro is behind him. And meanwhile, if you do get a chance from that onboard camera, that one facing back, you really get a great view of the ups and downs that make this Laguna Seca Raceway unique. Look at Ribeiro, he's got for the inside of Zanardi, and Zanardi sensibly does not try and fight him off. And Zanardi really, perhaps the car not working quite as well as it was in the early part of the race, but he's decided he's not going to battle. Oh, and Fittipaldi's off. Christian Fittipaldi is off at the side of the track, and we didn't see what happened yet. It looks as though...
yeah, it's up in the corkscrew there. A lot of smoke coming out of the side of that car. He's pulled off right off to the side of the road. That's on the left as you go down the hill. I'd say it's a pretty safe location. I don't think there's really any danger of a full course caution. You couldn't possibly hit him there even if you tried. So that should be okay so far as this race is concerned. But bad news for Christian Fittipaldi. You know, he's had appalling luck since he came back from that broken leg suffered at Surfers Paradise. He really has driven well. He's battled hard today. Clearly the Swift has not been dialed in to his liking, but he's doing a very professional job this afternoon, but at an early end to the day for Christian Fittipaldi.
What a shame, the very likeable Brazilian who's really settled into American racing after his days in Formula 1. But let's look at what happened. He locked up. Yeah, but listen to the engine. No engine. Sounds pretty bad. That sounds expensive.
But what he trailed, presumably, he may well have trailed oil there right along that racing line and into the braking area for the corkscrew. That's what could make it pretty dodgy for the next guy through there.
Jourdain's pulled off. We saw him in the pits, remember. Problem obviously proving to be terminal. And we're beginning to see a few retirements, aren't we? We've got 10 laps to go. We've completed 73. But the toll is increasing of cars retired, and it does seem as though the fairly high temperatures, it's a warm day. I wouldn't say it's a real scorcher of a day, but it's a lovely day. Let's just take another look. The engine had already failed by this point. He was just trying to get the thing slowed down and to try and pull off. Yeah, you can see something pretty horrible coming out of the back there. And the Ford Cosworth engine expiring in dramatic fashion for Christian Fittipaldi. So, end of the day for him, but we've still got a few runners and riders in this race. Zanardi's still running in 6th place, let me tell you, as we just see those bits. But meanwhile, being lapped is Roberto Moreno. Still doing well, though. He's running at the moment in 13th position. And remember, he started right at the back. So, Blundell just trying to squeeze past there as well. And that's just meant that Vassar's actually been able to open up a little bit of an advantage now. Andre Ribeiro is definitely the man on a charge at the moment. He's closed right up to the back of Scott Pruitt now. Ribeiro running in 5th position, and this really has been a good drive from the Brazilian, working his way up from 10th place on the grid and gradually picking off the cars as he's gone through this race. And now, as you see in the battle for what is going to be 4th position next up, it says battle for 5th. Well, it's not really. It's the battle for 4th that we're concentrating on between Pruitt and Ribeiro.
Yeah, and ahead of them, though, Mark Blundell in 2nd. He's still in 2nd place, but he's dropped back a long way now from Jimmy Vassar. On that last lap, he lost more than 2.5 seconds. There is Mauricio Gugelmin. He's running in 3rd place. There is Pruitt, Ribeiro, and Zanardi in 6th place. But not far ahead of that little group. Here is in the forefront of the screen is Mark Blundell ahead of the lapped car of Roberto Moreno. Yeah,
I don't know what happened to Blundell, and it's even bigger this time, Jeremy, as they go across the line. 4.3 seconds the gap between Jimmy Vassar and Mark Blundell.
Jimmy's actually up the pace a bit, 11.5, 1 minute 11.506 his last lap. He's stepped up the pace by a good half a second a lap over the last 4 or 5 laps.
So Vassar perhaps getting the signal from the pits that he's okay on fuel. Now that's interesting if that's the case, because throughout the course of the season we've generally seen Mercedes-Benz slightly better on fuel. It looks as though Honda have been catching up on that over the last few races. But somebody who's not had much luck today is Bobby Rahal. Bobby pulls into the pits, and it looks as though he goes out of the race. Bad luck for Bobby Rahal. We seem to have seen this a number of times this year, Jeremy, where he's been running, reasonably well in the race, and then all of a sudden it's all over and he's in the pit lane.
Yes, indeed. Yet more disappointment, of course. Disappointment too for his teammate Brian Hurd. He led so well early in this race, but his tyre's no match for the Firstones once again on this track on this afternoon. And disappointment for both of the Team Rahal pair. One of them out of the race, the other one. Actually, Hurd had just passed Walter Salas a couple of laps ago. He's up now into 8th position, but that's not what he wanted from this afternoon.
Now you're watching the leader, the back of this group, because you've got Alonso Jr. there in 10th place, Raul Boesel in 11th, and then you're seeing Jimmy Vasser, who established that quite big lead, although Mark's just put in the fastest lap that we've seen. Oh, off the track indeed, that looks like Pruitt.
It is Pruitt, because Boesel just came past here, so that's Scott Pruitt, who was running in 4th place.
So, drama. Scott Pruitt, who was running in 4th, driving a great race. I wonder if that was as a result of contact with Andre Ribeiro.
Funny you should say that, because Ribeiro just came past us. We're a couple of corners on. There goes Zanardi past Ribeiro. So Ribeiro was certainly slow as they came past here. I think there must have been quite a bit coming together there between those 2 or even 3, and Zanardi getting out of the way and getting past Ribeiro now. He's all of a sudden up in the 4th position.
Yeah, that helps him a lot. I didn't really see what was happening. I was concentrating on the time screen because Blundell's just done a 1 minute 10.9, and that's the fastest lap that we've seen, I think, of the entire race, certainly of the recent part of this race. So Mark Blundell managed to reduce the gap between himself and Jimmy Vasser to just under 3 seconds. If he can continue to lap at that pace, he could be in good shape, but it does depend on the traffic, and both of them are coming across traffic every lap now. As Zanardi crosses the line, Ribeiro has dropped back, as we said, and maybe we'll get a chance to see exactly what happened there.
Yeah, just looking out of the window here at turn 4.
Here we go.
Oh, there it is. Some contact there. You see some fiberglass flying off the front or back of one of the cars. So I think some contact there between those two.
So bad luck for Scott Pruitt indeed, after running a very good race indeed. That really is disappointing. Now this is when Zanardi was able to go past Ribeiro. It may have just been that Ribeiro sort of lost time, was worried about the car at that point. It may be that he's actually survived the incident okay, without too much damage. But whatever, look at this. This is the battle for the lead now. Look how much closer. Mark Blundell has suddenly caught Jimmy Vasser once again. And there are just 4 laps to go here at Laguna Seca as the battle is on, as moving out of the way. That was one of the Brahma cars. Couldn't see which one it was, but it could be Pruitt trying to make his way back round to start-finish line again. Vasser, though, has got Mark Blundell right behind him, and we've got a race on our hands now for the closing stages.
They both had to get past those 2 slower cars. There's Alonso Jr. there, and Roberto Moreno has actually picked up his pace again, but I think they both lost some time trying to get around Little Al. There goes Roberto Moreno down the inside there, passing Alonso Jr. That is for position. That is actually for 10th position, so a good effort by Roberto Moreno there. A lap down to the leaders, but still a great drive by the Brazilian.
Let me tell you that Scott Pruitt has made it back to the pits. We can see he has, there he is, into the pit lane. And I'm such disappointed for Scott Pruitt. He's such a good driver, puts in a good performance, but the luck just doesn't seem to go his way, particularly this year. He's had 1 victory, of course, that was early on in the season at Surfers Paradise, but it hasn't come together for him in the latter part of the year either. His teammate is on board with now, Raul Boesel in 9th position, but he's a little way behind Gualter Salles. Gualter Salles heading for an 8th place finish here. That's a great effort from the Brazilian rookie. Good performance. Looks as though he's going to be top rookie in this race today. Of course, we lost Fran Kitty. Well, not to lose him. He's still running. He's in 16th place, Dario, but he lost any chance of getting into the points when he ran wide down in turn 2. Now let's just focus on this battle, though, because as they cross the line this time, there are just 2 laps of this 2.2 mile track to go, and Jimmy Vasser seems to be heading for his first win of the season. And it seems as though we're heading for almost a repeat of what happened here last year, with one Ganassi car taking the victory and the other Ganassi car taking the championship. It's just the drivers are the other way around.
Yeah, that's an incredible coincidence, isn't it? Certainly Target Chip Ganassi racing, they love this race. And Joe Montana, the NFL star, he's here this weekend, and he'll be cheering on from the pits. And just less than a couple of laps to go now for Jimmy Vasser, hometown driver, the reigning PPG Kart World Series champion. He will relinquish that crown this afternoon, but he hopes, come away with a victory, and that's more important to him at this stage in the season.
Yes, it is, but look, Mark Blundell's a little closer as they come up across the corkscrew, downhill again. They've got cars to lap ahead of them. Raul Boesel is running at quite a decent pace, so whether they will be able to get past him before the end of the race, we'll have to wait and see. Blundell is certainly going to grab any opportunity that comes his way, and the pressure mounts on Jimmy Vasser. He has just 1 and a bit laps to do now as he comes out of the final corner of the penultimate lap. The white flag flies. This is it, the last 2 miles, and Jimmy Vasser will be protecting that advantage. Raul Boesel just ahead, Mark Blundell not quite close enough to have a go there into turn 2. But it's not just Bozell, there's another car there as well that could come into effect. In fact, it's one of the slow cars. It's Charlie Neerberg, and this could really set things up. There he goes. Bozell goes past. Oh, and Guterman's off. I don't believe it. Maurizio Guterman, who was running in 3rd place, is off the road. Alex Zanardi was behind him. That puts Zanardi into 3rd position now. And what has happened to Maurizio Guterman? Up front, it's still Vassar. Mark Blundell is still chasing him in the dying moments of this race. But Maurizio Guterman is off at the side of the track. This is the battle for the lead. Look how close Mark Blundell. He takes a different line into the corkscrew that Zanardi took last year. You don't win if you shortcut the track this year. They've made a new rule. But can he get anywhere on the final 2 corners? Down through turn 10. There's one more opportunity for Blundell. He's going to have to be brave into turn 11. He's not close enough. Vassar gets into the corner first. I think Jimmy Vassar's going to hold on here. Jimmy Vassar comes through to take his first win of the 1997 season. Blundell finishes in 2nd place, but we wait for Alex Zanardi. Zanardi is going to finish in 3rd position. Zanardi is the new champion. Alex Zanardi is the 1997 PBG Kart World Series champion, and it's a double victory for Ganassi today. The race win and the championship.
What a great day for Target Chip Ganassi Racing. A clean sweep, really, if you like. The championship won, and also the race by Jimmy Vassar. A great effort by both of these 2 drivers.
Down in the Ganassi pit area. In fact, this is in the winner's circle now, as Alex Zanardi and Jimmy Vassar both have wonderful things to celebrate. Zanardi is the new champion. Jimmy Vassar is the race winner. And we just saw the most remarkable incident as they came around on the slowdown lap. They were running side by side, and they actually tangled. Jimmy Vassar ended up spinning, and he had to get a lift back from Max Papis. Zanardi drove back to the pits safely, but I think they're just over the moon with the result today. And Chip Ganassi is of course delighted. Back-to-back championship wins for the Ganassi team, Jeremy. That's really quite an achievement, isn't it?
It certainly is. The last time anybody won back-to-back championships was Bobby Rahal in 86 and 87. And you know, this team has worked so very, very hard for this. And to have 2 different drivers win the championship, the Penske team did that in the early 80s, but a great performance by Target Chip Ganassi Racing.
We're taking a little look at what actually happened. Now look at these 2. They were going around celebrating together. Mark was dutifully behind. They tangled. And then round went Jimmy Vassar, and he couldn't get the car going again. He stalled it, unfortunately. He's probably so surprised at what had happened. And so Jimmy started walking back, and then he had to get a lift back from Max Papis. But Jimmy was still happy. He was still waving his arms about. The winner today here at Laguna Seca, his home track, his first win of the season, the outgoing champion. And I'm sure he must be delighted to see the championship go to his teammate and friend Alex Zanardi. They're the results. Jimmy Vassar the winner from Mark Blundell, who did a great job to finish 2nd today. Zanardi 3rd, Ribeiro 4th, from De Ferran and Herta.
Banner. He's got the cold drink, and Alex Zanardi, the pressure, the talk of the probation, everything disappears now. You have just won a championship and $1 million.
Sounds pretty good.
Tell us about the donuts out there. And did you make contact with Jimmy Vassar?
No, I wasn't planning to make the donuts. I was just so happy for Jimmy because the boy's been through so many misfortunes, and it's about time that he's got some luck, that he has some luck, and he finally win a race.
Have you allowed yourself the luxury of thinking what this means to you and your career and how it could play out in the future, how important it can be?
Not yet, but
and here's Jimmy Vassar as well.
Done it yet, and now it is, and I'm going to go happy tonight. I'm going to go home very happy.
He's going to go happy tonight. How about you, Jimmy Vassar? It's been 16 months since you've experienced this feeling.
Well, it's great to get back in the winner's circle. You know, we've had our ups and downs this year. We've been in a position to win a couple races, but it's been tough pretty much. But I got to hand it to my Firestone tires, my Honda engine, and my Target Chip Ganassi crew. They got me to the finishing line first. And how about this guy for the championship? If I got to give up the cup to anybody, this is the guy I want to give it up to.
You said a couple of races back that you were going back to working with your own setups rather than sharing information. Was that a key to making you more competitive these last couple of events and making you a winner today?
I choked. Absolutely. You know, it's
Go ahead and clear it out of there.
I sound like Danny Sullivan in his first telecast.
And that gets laughter in the booth and all around out here. You okay?
Not really. Cut to somebody else.
All right, Vassar is choked up. I don't know if it's the emotion of the moment or it's a gremlin in there, but gosh, they're happy. And why not, Bob?
Well, that really was quite an achievement. Look at this again. This was so silly, though. They're just running around together and they tangled.
Yeah, Vassar was right on the inside line there. The curb is coming up. I can't imagine what Zanardi was playing at. Very strange indeed. But another odd performance by the Italian. Maybe that's what the Italians do in victory. I don't know.
Just check the results again. Ribeiro drove great to finish 4th today. Gil de Ferran, well, he didn't do enough. 5th today. Brian Herter, the early race leader, survived to finish in 6th place. 7th position for Gualter Sales. Great job from him. Raul Boesel 8th. Mauricio Gugelmin 9th. Roberto Moreno did a great job too to finish 10th from the back of the field in a car he'd barely driven. Alonso Jr. and Parker Johnston took the final points. So the new champion is Alex Zanardi, and he wins the championship by quite a big margin, but he wins it from Gil de Ferran.
Well, there's a lot of jubilation over in Victory Circle. Not so much here for Gil de Ferran, but I think you knew that it was going to be a long shot coming into this race.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we knew it was going to be a long shot. Obviously, we were counting on the unexpected. The unexpected didn't happen. But on the other hand, we were really happy to lock in 2nd place in the championship. You know, that just goes to prove the fantastic job that the team has done throughout the year. I'm sad in one way that I won't be able to take the title decider to Fontana, but happy in another way that we were able to lock in the 2nd place in the championship.
Now, Fontana, you've run well on ovals. The Goodyears don't seem to have as much trouble. Looking forward to that race?
Very much so. I think, you know, we got one more chance to win a race this year, and we'll do the best we can.
All right, thank you very much, Gil. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Well, we got a whole family of Blundells here. This is young Mark. This is Callum over here. And, of course, you know Mark Blundell. His wife joins them here. This business of finding yourself on the podium, got to be loving it.
I do love it, you know, and that was a good race for us. We've been strong all weekend, and the race ran well. The guys did fantastic pit stops. I mean, I take my hat off. That's where we crept up in the positions with the pit stops.
Did you think at any point you might have a shot of being able to track down Vassar before it was all said and done?
Well, you know, actually we were on Jimmy a number of times, and when we needed to, we could pull the time out the bag and lap pretty quick, but we didn't really get a break with the back markers. I mean, you know, Jimmy got a break, we didn't, then I'd have to catch back up again. But that's the way it goes, you know, that's racing.
And a banner, of course, behind him indicates that Mercedes-Benz has won a manufacturer's championship, and a lot of people take pride in that.
Yeah, I'm very proud of that. Fantastic to be associated with Mercedes-Benz and also Firestone. And again, the Motorola car's on the podium, and that's fantastic.
And what a great season for Mark Blundell with a race to go. We'll see you down at Fontana in 3 weeks.
You sure will. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, great to see that. Let's second that. Mark Blundell doing another fine job today. 2 victories this year, a 2nd place here. And Mercedes-Benz having a very good day indeed, with the Manufacturers' Championship being wrapped up after success in Monza as well. They really can go and celebrate today. So what a fantastic race it's been, the penultimate race of the championship. But of course, we've still got another race to come, and that'll be in Fontana in 3 weeks' time. Just checking through the points as well. You can see Zanardi confirms himself as champion. Gil de Ferran, though, wrapping up 2nd, and Vassar now suddenly popping up into 3rd place in the points table as a result of his victory here today. And that means that as he goes into Fontana, he'll be chasing another good result to try and stay in the top 3 in the series, after it looked early on in the year that he wouldn't feature really that well in the top 10. So Alex Zanardi is the new champion, the new 1997 kart champion, the first European to do so since Nigel Mansell, of course, in 1993. And that is just a brilliant performance. He's been the class of the field this year, and he drove a champion's race today. He managed to stay out of trouble when it looked as though he was going to be in trouble, and he's come home with the crown. The new champion is Alex Zanardi, the winner of today's race, Jimmy Vassar. Thanks for joining us, Ben Edwards and Jeremy Shaw, for Eurosport's coverage from Laguna Seca. We'll see you in Fontana. Bye-bye.